educational services and reentry programs, especially at Rikers Island. They also say that the budget did not address the cost of living adjustment that's needed for caregivers and social workers. Joining me now to talk through more of these issues is Greg Morris. He's the CEO of the New York City Employment and Training Coalition. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Good to see you as well. It's a busy time.
Very busy time. Your organization and the organizations that make up your coalition, it's like over 100 groups, right? That
220.
220 that are doing the important work of helping people get ready and to stay in the workforce and to really sort of improve their lives in that process. It's not like you get one budget allocation. Everybody's kind of looking for money in a lot of different nooks and crannies.
That's right.
Overall, from what you can tell, how well did your members do?
Well, devil's in the details. All in all, I would say that this budget reflects some investments that we were hoping to see, specifically as it relates to year-round job development programming, job readiness training for young adults in school. This is related to the mayor's focus, I think, on young adults in particular. So we saw a commitment of dollars to do that in a meaningful way. We think that's valuable. The restoration of supports related to some of the commitments to CUNY were big as well, because that's a pathway to hopefully employment and education. I would say this, though, there were restorations too, and we can't necessarily celebrate those. The Metro cards for summer youth employment participants, $11 million. That's a restoration. That's not something that we can sort of champion. All in all, we've seen a handful of investments, but the reality of this moment is, and this is the challenge, the city council speaker called the budget a bittersweet sort of deal. I'm not sure what the sweet part is. The bitter, I understand. And that's specifically because in a city right now with unemployment rates for white New Yorkers that are less than 2% and black New Yorkers that are above 12%, this budget doesn't tell the story of how it is that we see equity, how it is that we see opportunity, and how we see economic growth.
I don't know if I've ever seen that big of a gap between black and white unemployment. What accounts for it, and what can your member groups do about it?
I think our member groups are focused on seeking the opportunities that exist to connect New Yorkers to employment opportunities, regardless of their starting point, or if they need a second or third chance at success. So whether it's related to someone who's seeking a job for the first time, or it's someone who's in a second act career, or it's upskilling or reskilling, it's our providers who do that in every neighborhood, every borough, and are connected as often as possible to industries, whether it's tech, healthcare, or otherwise. Specific to that gap in this particular moment, I think what we're seeing is the reality of the professional sort of sector in some cases, which has diversity issues related to hiring. We see in that particular category that there aren't as many opportunities, right? Or the folks that have opportunities have to have that certain special degree. And then the other category you see some growth in the public sector in terms of employment opportunities, often made up of black and brown New Yorkers, folks of color, but their wages are lower. So this is a complex moment to think about where it is that folks fit. Are they ready? Are they credentialed? Are they in a position where they're going to be hired at a living wage? At a moment, by the way, where half of New Yorkers can't meet their basic needs. That's according to the True Cost of Living report that United Way put together with the Fund for the City of New York.
Right. Something that we will certainly keep an eye on. Now, your coalition is part of a much larger coalition, the Human Services Council, which are the nonprofit organizations that do a lot of things. They do job counseling, but they also do drug training and social work and so forth. There was a big push to try and get their wages up, meaning the people who do this work are not getting paid enough, and because they're not city workers, they're contract workers. They don't necessarily get a bump if inflation is over 8% as it was last year.
That's exactly right. And the human services workforce, interesting moment during yesterday's press conference where the mayor says, we're going to do a workforce enhancement for the human services sector. The city council speaker says something along the lines of it's a COLA. The reality is this is not a COLA. This is a chunk of money that there's about 125,000 folks in the human services workforce. Again, 70% women, 70% folks of color, who are now receiving these contracted agencies who are responsible for $6 billion in city contracts, all the things you highlighted, case management services, housing and homeless services, mental health, education and employment child welfare, and everything in between. Trying to figure out how to divide up that money in that pool for that particular audience. That is very different than what we see with this mayor's agreement or this administration's agreement on a lot of other labor contracts where there are investments, there are COLAs, there's multi-year agreements. These numbers just don't add up for the human services workforce.
One of the asks was for a living wage floor of about $21 an hour. Did that get a reception from the city council? Was that part of the negotiation with the mayor?
We hear it is a stunning moment when you see as many city council members standing up together, standing tall and proudly and in a focused, diligent way saying the Just Pay campaign, we want to see a living wage for this human services workforce. Partially, I think that's because there's a lot of council members who came from that sector, which is exciting and thrilling. I do believe this administration wants more, but it's not adding up. I think we see where the investments are going. This is a mayor that focused on safety and security, and investments have been made in safety and security. At what cost? And I guess that reflects to some degree, I would say, a misunderstanding of what prevention looks like and the value that you can put dollars into these services and they have multiple benefits on the other side.
Sure. Is there high turnover among the member agencies of your coalition and the Human Services Council?
I think the reality of this particular moment in time is there's high turnover everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, folks are struggling to get back to the workforce, partially because we're in a post-pandemic environment that has presented all sorts of unique challenges. Wages are particularly challenging right now. Resource New Yorkers are struggling to find childcare. So if you add up all those layers, in addition to a housing crisis, in addition to toxic air around us, or the toxic decisions by our Supreme Court, the reality is this is a complicated moment for New Yorkers, and I think we want jobs to be first. We want quality jobs. We want quality wages.
Yeah.
We want the right wages. But the reality is I think folks are struggling to figure out how this new New York works to meet those economic needs.
Yeah, no, well, I thought ever since the big fight over, repurposing the NYPD and taking some of the functions away from them and giving more of it to social service groups, that it immediately called the question of, like, are those groups adequately supported? Are they adequately resourced? Is there enough training? Is there enough, frankly, manpower to get it done?
I'm struck by the number of providers who say to me now, and I've been in the human services sector for 25 plus years, largely as a program provider, a direct service provider, building programs, in some cases moving programs, dismantling programs, adding to programs. But the reality is, this moment in time, the number of organizations that say to me, our contract agreements haven't been met. We're owed a lot of money by the city government. They haven't figured out how to pay us. Some of that is related to staffing challenges that still exist in the municipal workforce. But I would also add, it's also about the nonprofit sector, the human services sector in particular, the rhetoric about a working people's agenda not matching up to meet the needs of that particular sector and that particular workforce.
Okay, we'll continue that conversation another time. Best of luck in getting those messages across, and we'll hope that as the budget realities become clear, that people are getting what they need to do the work, the very important work that you and your members do. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break now. When we come back, I'll talk more about the city's budget deal and other political headlines with two top journalists in our Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.